Hello, I'm Timmermold, and this is my 2025, a collection of my descriptions of most important games I've played this year. Now, they're not all games I've played this year, this would be far too many to list, and this video would be like an hour long if I were to list all of them in detail, so we'll start with the most important ones. Let us get to it. First of all, coming in strong as probably the best game I've played in 2025, and if I really think about it, likely 2024 as well, Blueprints. It's a puzzle game that released in spring of this year, and it's really more than meets the eye, which is a delightful formula for games. I would recommend everyone to try it. It's one of those games where the less you know about it before playing, the better your experience will be, as unintuitive as it may sound. But it's true. There is one big element that some players might dislike heavily, that being RNG, randomness. If randomness in games at all is a deal breaker for you, you might not enjoy Blueprints. It plays a very heavy role, and in my opinion, it will become more of a nuisance in the later stages of the game, where you're acting with intent instead of just exploring whatever the game gives to you. But other than that, I would seriously recommend everyone to try Blueprints, especially if you're watching this video. I am sure you will enjoy it, and you might even look past the RNG. Who knows? I'm not a fan of it either, and yet it's the best game I've played in the last 2 years. Moving on now, the next game is Cosmoteer, Starship Architect and Commander. It's a great game, but saddeningly, it's not for me. I bought it on Steam and played it for about 4 to 5 hours, if I recall correctly, and yet I found myself sort of bored just after a few hours of playing it. The starship building in this game, as the title suggests, is probably the key mechanic, and it's great, but I found after you're done designing and building your vessel, there is not much to do. The only real ways you can earn currency to progress is either combat or selling resources, or both. You can scavenge resources off of rival ships as well. However, I did not really like the combats. Allow me to explain. I would design my ship for a specific strategy for a combat encounter. That seemed sound in my head. However, when I tried to actually execute the combat strategy, despite having all the means to execute it, the vessel would just go apeshit, honestly. It would not do what I ordered it to, or it would do that but not in the way I was expecting and planning for. That might just be my own skill issue. However, I do not really enjoy fighting the game itself rather than the enemies the game provides with me. So I don't think Cosmoteer is for me, and I have refunded it. Now remember, this was all back in January or February this year, so almost an entire year has passed. There has been at least one major update to Cosmoteer since then, and they might be working or have already fixed the issues I'm bringing up. As such, these issues might no longer be in the game. I haven't kept up with it after refunding. Anyway, moving on. Are we there yet? It's a cooperative game I've played about in October or November, I don't actually remember. Anyway, I played it on release because I was invited by a party to play. I have never played any other games of this specific genre, like Peak, which I believe Are We There Yet is heavily inspired by, but from my gameplay, I did not really enjoy Are We There Yet that much. While the concept is interesting, you have to drive your RV, that's the name, to the destination. Of course, there are obstacles on your path. The execution is, in my opinion, lacking. For how it's presented, it's just disappointing. As a full release game, it's on Steam with a price tag, there's no early access warning or anything, And the developers claim it was playtested for about a week, and I've read reviews from the playtesters, or one of the playtesters. But when I was playing, there were just way too many game-breaking bugs. The performance was poor, optimization seemed lacking, and there were, in my opinion, game design and gameplay oversights, such as, for example, you can only counter one threat with one specific item, and both the threat and the item appear at entire random, so you can just play an entire game without ever encountering them, or you can encounter it at the beginning and it will just destroy you and force you to a checkpoint because you just haven't found that item, and there's nothing else you can do. So, yeah, there were also network issues, terrible desyncing of NPCs between. One NPC will just become invisible, and then it can kill you while it's invisible for you, but it is visible for other players. So from your perspective, you just died from an invisible enemy. You had no clue it was even there. I refunded Are We There Yet? But again, there have been a couple months since release, so some of these issues might have been addressed. I have not kept up with the game's development. Let's move on to another new release that you probably have heard of, Deltarune Chapters 3 and 4, which released in the start of June this year. I have only played it in August, and there isn't much I can say about this game that hasn't already been said. The one notable thing, in my experience, was Chapter 3's overall perceived value. I initially viewed it as a mediocre filler, if I could use that word, before Chapter 4, which is undeniably great. But since then, Chapter 3 has grew on me. I don't believe it's filler anymore, and I think this is because of the Sword Round. Sword Round is one of the highlights of this chapter, undeniably, but many players are likely to miss it unless they perform explicitly greatly in the boards. I have gotten A ranks on both boards and was unable to find the NPC that apparently sold an S rank. I have never even seen that NPC. So I missed out on the Sword Round entirely, which is why I believe many people who have also missed out on it may think lowly of this chapter, but I could also be wrong. Again, our perceptions shift with time. Anyway, these are all the new releases, games that have released this year that I have played. Let's move on to older games that I've only played for the first time this year. Let's start with Noita, the roguelike where every pixel is simulated. I have briefly heard about Noita before playing it, but I almost instantly fell in love with it. I find it rather similar to Blueprints, not in gameplay, but in the way that it's much more than initially meets the eye, and I believe Noita is even more expansive than Blueprints in this aspect. There is much more to discover and do than you might see on a regular playthrough, and believe me, when you believe you've completed the game, there is still much more to do. Next, Hollow Knight, a 2017, if my memory is not mistaken, release that I have only played this year, surprisingly completely unspoiled. The only thing I knew is that there was Hornet as a character in there, mostly because of Silksong. I haven't heard anything about the plots, or enemies, or anything in the game really. Hollow Knight was probably the first Metroidvania I have ever played, at least to my memory. I cannot remember playing any other ones, and needless to say, it's probably an inspiration for many of my own projects now. Maybe not a primary one, but it has given me a lot of food for thought. And it's great. Of course, it's also difficult, but I personally, despite having never really played any significant platformers, I found it to be fair in terms of difficulty. I wouldn't say it's overly hard or that I wasn't able to complete any portion of the game, well, besides Pantheon 4, but still. I have not played Silksong, but I have seen videos of it. I don't know the details, and I don't know any of the endings, but I don't think I'll be playing it in the near future. From what I've heard, it feels like it's Hollow Knight for people who thought Hollow Knight was easy. I did not think it was easy. I think it was pretty difficult, but I managed to overcome it. And I don't think I would enjoy Silksong because its difficulty is just elevated so much. Anyway, the last game that I would like to shed light on in this video, and probably the one that has affected me the most personally. Celeste. You are likely to have heard about it. It's a great platformer, but it's even greater due to its story, which, in case you don't know, I implore you to get the game and complete it for yourself. Even if you're unacquainted with platformers, I do believe you should be able to complete the main story of Celeste. And that is really the biggest takeaway I have from this game, how it's affected me. It has taught me some lessons I have not realized before, which is why I left it for last. It may not be the best game I've played this year, this one goes to Blueprints, as mentioned before, but it has affected me much more and on a much deeper level than most other games. And I believe that's it. These are the games that I wanted to talk about in this video. Obviously, games aren't the only thing I do or have done this year. I also watch anime, and I also occasionally read, and I play games that I haven't mentioned here as well, because, again, I would not be able to even list all the games I've played this year without forgetting one or two, much more describe them in any sort of detail. Anyway, what about 2026? Well, I'm sure many more games await for us. Deltarune Chapter 5 is planned for 2026, so I have that to look forward to. And besides, I do plan on focusing more on my own projects, which mainly include games. As you may know, I aspire to be a game developer. So stay tuned for that, I guess. I don't know. Eventually it'll happen. I suppose that should be it for today. Thank you for watching. I wish you happy holidays, and I hope your 2026 will be ever better. Thank you.